All right. Hi, I'm Anne. I am actually a single mom of three. Didn't plan on being a single mom, but that's okay. I have a 5.5-year-old daughter, Frankie, who's the love of my life. Could just eat her up. She's going to kindergarten.
Oh,
And I have twin boys, die twin boys that are three. Um, and when I found out I was pregnant with my daughter, I was terrified of not sleeping. I've never really struggled with mental health, like on a medical like diagnosis, but I definitely have like anxiety. And all of that was really made worse when I wasn't sleeping. So, like before I had kids, if I didn't sleep well, I was not the nicest person. And so when I got pregnant, everyone scared me. There's all those like scare tactics out there that were like, you're going to be up all night and your life is just over and blah, blah, blah. And I was really determined to find a way to get my baby to sleep. I thought I would have been a cry it out mom because I'm very A type. And then my daughter was born and I was like, I can't let her cry. Like,
I was the opposite.
nope, that's not going to work for me. And it also did not work for my hormones. So like after postpartum, like the crying did something to me on a very like deep level. Um, and so I just set out to find a method that worked to get my baby to sleep. And I found it very easy to understand the information out there about like, okay, I'm going to put this all together and I'm going to figure it out. But I didn't find a way that was relatable, like that made it easy for parents to understand, especially tired parents, because a lot of people are coming, you know, to find more information about sleep once they've had a baby. And as many of you know, not to scare Nina here, but like it's a lot. It's a whirlwind. It's a big change when you have a baby. It's the best thing that's ever happened to me in my life, but it's also a very big change going from like a single person living in New York to like here I have three kids now. So anyways, I wanted to create a method that was very gentle, that always took my baby's needs into consideration because I felt like that was something that no one was really paying attention to. Do you love my dog? I just realized
I
my
know I was
dog's
going
in the
to
back.
say three kids
So
and a dog.
cute.
And a dog. She's like she's the worst. But I just wanted to make it gentle. I felt that none of the methods out there were like, people were like, oh, leave your baby cried out. But I was like, well, is the baby hungry? Like, is the baby tired? Are we meeting the baby's needs fully? Or like Nikki was sharing that her son is like woke up in the middle of the night and I'm like, the first question I ask is, well, how much is he napping during the day? Because no one was paying attention to like, see my dog. No one
Yeah.
was paying attention to like things like total daytime sleep and how much a baby could
Right.
physically sleep. So I created a program that put this together for parents. I created a simple 3-step method that really can be implemented at any age. And I'm going to share that with you guys today. The key ingredients that you want to work on to get your baby to sleep and that you can work on from birth. Doesn't discriminate. Like you want to, I promote safe crib sleeping. If you want to co-sleep, my method will work with whatever you want to do. And then, I've also created all these wonderful resources to try and support parents once you've established the nighttime sleep, supporting parents kind of, through the first year and beyond a baby. So that's me. Nikki.
Yeah. Hi. Hi, everyone. I am Nikki Melman. I actually head up community here at Hatch. So I put on all of these events to support moms and parents during what can be a super lonely time. But, so many people, so many of us are going through it. And so we can do that together. And so bringing everyone together with topics that obviously can be a little bit frightening before you know what you're kind of in for. I am also a mom to Ryder, who is 7 months old. So I've been through it all. And as Anne said, I think it's an ongoing process. I think having the fundamentals at the beginning to get them to sleep through the night is that's the win, right? That's the goal. That was my goal. I was very adamant about I want to go back to work and have my son sleep through the night. So I did everything I could to kind of achieve that with Anne's help through full feedings. And, it's still a process because what Anne will get into is that it changes as they grow. They need less sleep. And if they're getting too much, they're not going to sleep through the night. So as they're sleeping a lot at the beginning, that kind of decreases. And you don't know until you know. We can go by all of the rule books and all of that, but it depends on the baby. And then I also want to share that Anne's method is so affordable, which for me is something that is really, really important as we talk about taking care of parents and moms. She's just so hands-on and it's so affordable and accessible, which is just like why I love partnering with her and bringing this conversation here. And then I'll kick it over to Nina as she brings the pregnant perspective to the conversation.
Sure. Sure. Well, thanks. So hi, everyone. My name is Nina Crowley. I am resident mom to be here, I guess, representing all the pregnant mamas. I'm going to be a first-time mom. I'm due the end of this month, so I'm just over 37 weeks, which is wild, and have a lot of questions about my baby to be and sleep. And I've actually been following Anne, which is, I'll just say this quick, for years before my husband and I were ever even like thinking about having a baby, because I had seen something online and I was like watching her and I was like, this is, whenever the time comes, this is what I will need, because I am a person also that really needs sleep. Like I know that to be my best self, like I need sleep. And so I had a lot of anxiety even before we started thinking about having kids, of like, how are we going to keep our sleep? And I didn't like whatever kind of, Anne, what you were saying, when people say like, oh, your life is going to be crazy or you're never going to sleep again. Like, I just
The scare
like
tactics. I don't get it. It's like
I
those
don't
scare
like
tactics.
why. There should
Yeah,
be.
I don't like it.
It's
So-
hard. Like it's not hard, of course.
No, of course,
Like,
but it's not like if you work, like that's really, I think too, what I'm trying to change is the narrative surrounding like, what does sleep look like with infants? What does that even mean? Like, I don't even consider what I do sleep training. I don't call it that. I actually just call it a way of life that you can implement from birth, because it needs to change. Like I was just prepping. I do prep some of my like social media posts in advance, and I was prepping one today on like the benefits of sleep, because I don't usually get into like, I'm not a doctor, but I'm a mom and I can do my research, which is like, we need sleep. Like everyone, you can go longer without food than you can without sleep. And as far as like mental health and development and growth and your immunity and all the things that we need, that goes far beyond just like a baby. It goes into adulthood. But why are we not valuing that for our children? Why are we being made feel guilty if we care and want to get our child to sleep? That we shouldn't be made to feel bad about that. And there are these people out there that scare parents, that make you think, that you should be waking up, if your child's sleeping, that you should be waking them up to feed at night. And I'm like, I'm working really, it's also why I've made it very affordable. I want this to be accessible to people, because it shouldn't be a maternity leave in America, not good. Okay. Like that's another whole other thing, but
that's another,
that's another seminar that we'll do. But in order to get back to work, you have to like, how can you be productive in your workplace if you're not sleeping and you're constantly worried about that? So
and it makes
I'm excited to
have your baby too. Like
yes.
Babies need sleep also, and they need to eat, like they need to be fully fed, which you'll get into, and they need to sleep. And so
just meeting their needs,
the
like
quality of life for everybody is
right. It's almost like the self-care, how moms, like there's always those memes that are like, self-care is not taking a shower. That's like a basic right as a human that we need. So it's like with babies, it's like, it's not like it's a need that they need to sleep and sleep well. And, I'm here trying to, bring that awareness to that through a very simple method that focuses on that from birth or at any age that you're starting. I don't want parents thinking like, okay, my baby is 4 months old, can I start this? So I don't know if I can kind of go into it, because I want to make sure.
Yeah, do the like general, what the program is, and then we can answer some questions, and then everybody can use the chat function. If you have questions, obviously super specific questions will be harder to address, and can try and do the best she can. Obviously, this is to kind of introduce you to kind of her program, and we will share at the post event, share all the information to sign up and to use Anne on a one-on-one basis.
So, and just, you guys can I'm like usually pretty good at pulling in questions, but
I can help too.
Yeah, if you have. And then Nina, I know you have some at the end that we'll kind of go through to like for any of the expectant parents. But so this is what I believe. I believe if we meet baby's needs fully, and that's food and sleep needs from birth, that they will sleep. Okay. So full feeds, it's usually relative to if you're nursing or bottle feeding, or combination feeding. I can kind of go into, I won't get super specific. It depends on the age of your baby. If your baby's, birth to 6 months old, we want the feeds to really be about 30 minutes, including burp time. That's 30 minutes to finish an age appropriate bottle or 30 minutes at the breast. We do this for a number of reasons, because one, it helps to pace out baby and the feed. And, like I said, this includes burp time. So you're not like rushing through a feed we really want it to take 30 minutes in the beginning. That would be considered a full feed. Of course, as Nikki mentioned, like every baby is different, right? But there's many reasons why we aim for that. I think it's kind of universally accepted that would be considered a full feed. That's what lactation people will consider, in the beginning, working towards 30-minute feeds. You're going to feed your baby.
I also just want to say, like, it's getting there, right? Like,
yes,
at the beginning, you're not
going to be like 5 minutes.
Like,
no.
So when I sometimes read your like schedules, I'd be like, crap, I'm not at the, it's always like let's get there. So like, obviously it's going to take longer at the beginning, like when they're 2 weeks old, like,
of course,
a lot longer.
Thank you for adding that. Cause sometimes I'm like, and in my head, I'm like, well, yeah, of course. But then I'm like, people don't know that.
People don't know that.
Your first 4.5 weeks is just going to be establishing full feedings. Like you're just working, and that's the work of the first 4.5 weeks. It's how you begin from birth. As soon as you are in the hospital, whether that's a bottle or breast, you're going to work, whether you're doing it, like, it doesn't matter. My sons were in the NICU and they did the same thing. They were tube fed for 30 minutes at a slow pace and they would, burp them and do everything with them, the nurses, because, I was there as well, but there was 2 of them. So it's 30 minutes, but you're working up to that. So I should preface all of this by saying we don't force anything. Like nothing should ever feel forced or like a struggle. Like you're gently working towards this. And every time you feed your baby, whether it's a newborn or a 6-month-old or beyond, is a new chance to practice full feedings, right? Because okay, maybe in the beginning, baby's too tired. That's going to be your work, is to just keep them awake long enough to take a full feeding, whether that is bottle or breast. Some little tidbits, importance, like if you're bottle feeding, nipple flow is really important. People miss this. Why?
People miss this.
I'm like, Dr. Brown, do you not want to partner with me?
Nobody talks about it. It's literally number one thing I say to new moms, like, the nipple is a size. If they are struggling, it's not the formula, it's not the breast milk, it is the nipple size and the flow of the milk. So like, literally I had Ryder screaming bloody murder for 10 days until I realized that it was like
too slow. One thing that you will, and lactation consultants, if you are doing a combination of bottle and breast, lactation consultants often say, keep the slow flow nipple because it will help baby to not reject the breast. And I will say in the beginning, this is true. When you're establishing your nursing relationship, you need to establish it if they are taking a bottle, because my sons were tube fed and then bottle fed. And then I got home with sleepy newborn twins and nobody wanted to nurse. That's what happens. If it's too fast, they don't want to work for it. But when you're working, like if you've established your nursing like relationship with your baby, as long as you're nursing more than your bottle feeding, once it's established, you want to use the appropriate flow nipple, or else the bottle feed, you'll be like, I can't say how many parents are like, my baby doesn't want to take a bottle. And I'm like, it's the flow. And then I come to find out the lactation woman said, don't use, use a slow flow nipple, and the baby's like struggling to take 2 ounces and waking up all night. That's stuff that I help people. My online program has a ton of information on stuff like that, little tidbits, but that's something I focus heavily on, is our full feeds, and establishing that, as soon as you can. And you must maintain that, because the thing is as baby grows, their stomach gets bigger, they weigh more, they need more food to remain fully fed. So we have to rise and meet that at every occasion. Like Nikki shared that her son woke up last night at 1:30. The first place I would look would be how much daytime sleep he's getting. And the second place I would look would be milk. How much milk? Did he start solids? Is he eating less? Maybe those are reasons that they wake, which maybe might not make sense right now, but for anyone that's like, pregnant. But as you get into it, like these are things that you troubleshoot. Feedings look like in the first 4.5 weeks. Okay. What will feedings look like? Someone asked this, which is a good segue. Feedings are going to be, it depends on your baby. Like my daughter nursed, latched on, never got mastitis, had the best nursing relationship. She fed for 30 minutes. Then you get the babies that have a tongue tie or a lip tie or don't want to latch on, or the nipples not, there's issues that you have to work through. It really depends on the child. So you're just working towards this, and there's tons of support out there. Like if you get in and you're like 3 weeks in and baby doesn't want to stay on for more than 5 minutes, you are going to want to kind of explore what's going on. And your
yourself. Be kind to yourself.
Oh yes, it's
like,
true.
It's okay. For what it's like they need to be fed. And so I know there's a lot of pressure around breastfeeding and what's right, what's wrong. Literally do what works for you, and don't
100%.
like, I know it's easier said than done, but your mental sanity and your sleep and all
100%
makes for what baby is as well. They feel everything. If I'm anxious, Ryder knows. Like I
100%
actually feel that. And for me, like I really wanted to breastfeed, but he wasn't getting enough. And so like I could have him on the boob for 45 minutes and like then give him a 5-ounce bottle, which means he maybe got 2, maybe 3 ounces on my boob for 45 minutes. Like I didn't have time to feed for 2.5 hours. And so
and it's not good actually for them as well. Like I limit the feed time. When I say that like 30 minutes is a feed, I limit that too, because, and everyone will tell you to do that, because otherwise they get exhausted in the beginning. They can't stay awake. I'm going to talk about this in a second, like wake time and stuff like that, as it relates to like a routine.
Yeah. Somebody asked to keep her awake to get a full feed. Any tips?
I mean, honestly, if you want to know what they do in the hospital, they get those babies naked down to their diaper, and they put cold
compresses.
Because the thing is that people don't realize they have to eat. You have to wake your baby during the day to eat. You can't just let them go and they're going to tell you to wake them. I mean, I've used ice cubes on their feet, like little, you know what I mean? Like nothing crazy, but it is so important that they eat, tickling their chin, taking them for a breath of fresh air, opening the fridge, like anything, dancing, like just it's work in the beginning, that you're going to be tired from giving birth, however your birth experience is. You're going to be tired, but if you work on establishing those full feedings, you will be well on your way to nighttime. If you do nothing else and just feed your baby fully, your baby will develop a really healthy routine from that, because hungry babies do not sleep well. Let me say it again. Hungry babies do not sleep well. If you try to force your baby to sleep with them not being fully fed, you will literally be battling them. And it's not worth it. It's why cry it out I'm really against. Obviously, if baby's needs are met and you choose to cry it out, fine. I don't judge that in remotely, because it will happen very quickly. When kids are left to like cry for an hour and I'm like, your child is hungry, I constantly, am managing that with parents every day, is like, maybe you need to see someone in lactation. The thing Nikki said, like, ask for help. Like there's tons of support. Don't be embarrassed. It's not like, my daughter was breastfed for a year. I did start supplementing with some formula at 6 months. My twins, it was different. They were in the NICU. I was going through a divorce. My mom was dying. I had a 2.5-year-old at home. I have newborn twins that are coming home from the NICU, and I couldn't do it. I was like, I had to exclusively pump. So I'm pumping to feed 2 babies. By 3 months, I was completely on formula, because my mental health was suffering as far as like being a good mom to like the group, and so just do, if it's not working, you try, but like you want to make sure fed is really best, as they say. Make sure your baby is fed. The work, like I said, keep them awake to eat. It might be 10 minutes, like the first week, you'll see how it goes. Maybe, I think I vaguely remember my daughter would nurse like 7 minutes each side. But it's the practice. You have to have patience too a little bit, which is hard when you're tired, but to work at this. So establishing full feedings, super important ingredient to get your baby to sleep. I'll kind of go into the next thing that I think is important following a routine. So I don't really suggest following any type of a routine where you're like trying to make something happen until about 4.5 weeks old. There are some things that you can do in the first 4.5 weeks to limit daytime sleep. One of these things, they're going to tell you to feed your baby every 3 hours at least. That's going to limit daytime sleep. So along the lines of what I was talking about with Nikki and her son, and we're going to see how much he's sleeping during the day to make sure his 12 hours of sleep at night are possible. It goes the same for newborns. So you can gently limit daytime sleep when they're the first 4.5 weeks, but right around the 4.5 week mark is when I believe that you really want to start following a routine. And part of that routine is paying attention to optimal wake time, which I'm sure if you're in the baby circles, you've heard this or you've heard me talk about it. Optimal wake time is the amount of time your baby should stay awake. It's not necessarily how long they could stay awake. So they can often stay awake longer. It does differ. Like I have created guides that kind of are like, this is what an average baby they are. I sometimes surprise myself with how accurate they are when babies like transition. I'm like, wow, I really nailed this. But
I also want to say that feeds start like it starts from the second they wake. Like feeds, you feed a baby at like 7 a.m. and like you're on a 3-hour schedule, you're feeding them again at 10, not 3 hours from the
feed to feed. Yes.
That's awesome.
Beginning to feed to beginning of feed is when you're counting the time, which is kind of confusing because it doesn't really make sense. But yes, you want at least, and I'm actually an advocate of closer together feeds because a lot of people want to move to the 4-hour feed schedule, which I totally understand. But we have problematic eaters, we have reflux, we have all this stuff. Even if your baby, and this is like little, like 6 months and beyond, you can start to play around with like a little bit longer between feeds. But really before that, if we want to make sure your baby is fully fed during the day, which is the basis of my method, by 8 weeks old, we can, your baby, if they're average size, can hold enough food in their belly in the daytime, which I'll talk about what hours that is for me. It includes a dream feed. But they can eat enough in that time that there isn't a need to feed at night. That doesn't mean we just stop feeding them at night, but in theory, we're working to make sure that they're fully fed during the day so we don't have to feed them at night. So there isn't a need. Part of that is feeding them a little bit closer together. If you go to a 4-hour feed schedule, it compromises your baby's ability to remain fully fed in the daytime hours, because even if they eat a little bit more per feed, their daytime total will likely be less for the day because you'll end up losing one feed, which is something that people don't often pay attention to. So I would rather have you feed them every 2.5, 3 hours, which by the way, I think is very normal that a baby would eat even less than 3 hours apart. It's very normal for like newborns, especially if you're breastfeeding. But
what
part
is
of this
feed? Tell somebody.
Someone's dream feed. Okay, so I'll talk about this. So the dream feed is really just an extra feed. Okay, people get hung up on this. You're going to have a dream feed. I consider it to be like a late evening feed, so 10 to 11 p.m. at night. From birth, you're going to naturally have that anyways, because your doctor is going to tell you feed around the clock, not to scare Nina, feed around the clock every 3 hours until they gain their birth weight back. And then they'll probably tell you that you can let them go at night, which is typical in the US. A dream feed is an extra feed. So I just like keeping that feed in place in the late evening feed. It's normal that from about birth to 6 weeks old, the baby will be awake for that feed. They're going to wake up like a full, like you would be feeding them during the day. But as they grow, you want to try to get them to sleep through this feed. And the reason I use a dream feed is because we're stretching a time that your baby can go between feeds. We're not stretching their sleep, right? So we have to think about it in different terms of like, baby can only go 7 to 8 hours without food at 8 to 12 weeks old. And that's from a blood sugar standpoint. So if you look in medical, they can't maintain their blood sugar without having food longer than that. So a dream feed is going to help you to get your baby to sleep through the night without needing to wake and eat by that age, because it's going to go from like 10:30 until 6:30 in the morning is when I want those hours between feeds to be for you. That looks like a night, right? And then as they get older, 12 to 16 weeks old, they can start to go 12 hours without eating from a blood sugar standpoint, as well as how much they can physically hold in their belly. And then we start to stretch that from a dream feed. So I encourage parents, when I say those daytime hours, I encourage you to treat the dream feed like daytime. So many parents want to drop it because they want to go to sleep. And I get it. The dream feed, if you are offering a bottle, is a great time to have a partner or another, like a grandparent, anyone who's helping you get involved. I didn't do it right away. I don't think after birth. I think I waited like a week or two, but I introduced a bottle because I had to go back to work and that was the reality of my life. And so I introduced a bottle and, you know, it was great at that dream feed. My ex-husband would do the dream feed. And then I would get to go to sleep. You know, I would pump, go to sleep, and then sleep until like 1 o'clock in the morning. The reason the dream feed gets a bad rap is because it doesn't always extend right away, right? We keep this like feed in place. It might not extend baby instantly to sleep 6 hours from there or 5 hours from there, whatever they're doing. We can gently help them to do that. But stretching this time between the feeds, you know, your baby's not going to go from eating every 4 hours at night to going 12 hours without eating. It doesn't jump like that. We incrementally help them to extend this. This is how we get them to sleep without doing anything kind of drastic. So I do want to talk if there's, chime in, Nikki, too.
There are a few questions. Just
Oh, please. Yes.
One,
ask.
bottle fed, how many ounces is the goal for daytime feeds to be accomplished? I think that just depends on.
It's age, but like some babies are full on 32 ounces a day. Some babies need, my sons at 1 year, they're huge. They were needed 45 ounces of food each.
Whoa.
And I'm sorry, my pediatrician would be like, and I'm like, I would try to withhold food and they were starving and miserable. So, and I have fraternal twins. So I'm like, one, they eat the same and one is skinny and one's 10 pounds heavier. It's genetics. It wasn't overfeeding.
Yeah.
I think someone did ask, it's a good segue. If the baby's eating in 15 minutes, you should offer more food. It is a good sign, as long as you're not like slamming the bottle down. It's a good sign to get to 30 minutes. So you would want to offer a little bit more. When you offer more food, you're offering 0.5 ounces or like 15 milliliters. You're not offering 2 more ounces of food. So you incrementally move that. And I want to say too, for a baby's over 6 months, if you're nursing, it does start to lessen. If you're bottle feeding, it does start to get quicker. I'm sure you see, Nikki, like it's going to take 15 to 20 minutes to feed a bottle, but it naturally kind of happens where, you know, as long as baby, but like Nick, if you were saying to me, oh, Ryder's eating in 10 minutes his bottle, I'd be like, maybe we should try a little bit more because like another half of an ounce. And
that's what I was doing. Yeah, I upped it because he was like chugging that thing in like 8 minutes. And I was like, great.
Gonna give you more, but that's how we kind of do it. So, beyond that, breastfeeding, like just to kind of finish that thought, is that once baby's like 9-10 months old, it's going to be a quicker feed, you know, as you get closer to a year. That's to be expected. But I always use sleep as a great indicator. If you're doing everything else, which I'm going to talk about, like a routine, if you're doing everything else and they're sleeping the appropriate amount of time during the day and they're not getting overly tired and you have a disruption, we know, okay, maybe it is food. Maybe we need to increase that. So that's how we kind of judge, you know, it's different for every baby, but I wanted to note that over 6 months old, it will be like a little bit less time.
Yeah, I think
for feed.
Someone had a question at 6 months old. How do you get a 6 month old breastfed baby to latch for 30 minutes? The baby pulls away after 10 minutes. Is it due to no more milk or is she full?
So for me, it would depend on how the baby was sleeping. If the baby is doing that and napping well and contented, it's probably okay. If the baby was not sleeping well, I would probably encourage you to offer eat, play, eat, sleep, where you would do 2 feeds. So like that's always a good option for like reflux babies. You don't have to do it in every single cycle, but you can do it, you know, in the afternoon and the evening so that you can, you know, try to make sure that your baby is fully fed in that like 30 minutes between 2 feeds in some cycles.
The most amount of options to eat, I think, is
with the least amount of work. Like I don't want you guys doing eat, play, eat, sleep in every cycle, but there are ways to, because at 5-6 months old, they get distracted. Yep. And no one wants to go into a dark room and with no TV. My daughter used to, if I had pulled my cell phone out, she'd be like craning her neck and I'd be like, how do you know? You know, and they become very aware. So Yeah, you just do your best. There's different ways that you can work, but I guess my answer is that it would depend on how the baby was sleeping.
And one other question, 12-week-old was sleeping 6 to 8 hour stretches in the first part of the nights in 6 weeks, but last couple weeks has shifted to waking every 2 to 3 hours.
So that's either food
Yeah.
or wake time.
daytime.
So you either have to lessen daytime sleep, which is increasing your optimal wake time, or decreasing nap length, how much baby is actually napping,
Yeah.
or your baby is hungry. And that's it. Like, that's in every parent that I deal with, thousands of parents. That's it. Like, I see sleep from it's just such a, like, I see it and I'm like, that's exactly what it is. So
Yeah.
then you would methodically work through making sure, okay, well, how much is baby eating? Okay, let's see. Maybe I need to increase that. Okay, maybe simultaneously I'm going to lessen daytime sleep a little bit, and see what happens.
Do one change at a time though, because then you know what it
Yes,
is.
true.
Yes.
100%. So I also work very methodically, which is like, let's try this first. And then, increasing food, I find never goes, I mean, they're either going to take it or they're not. So like, you probably could do increasing food while you were lessening daytime sleep a little bit. But as they get older, when you're making subtle changes, yes, it's like one thing at a time, or else this is all things, baby. You will overwhelm yourself. So
Yeah.
many people, and I can't tell you how many parents are like, baby's teething, and I was thinking of taking them out of the swaddle and also transferring them to their crib at the same time. And I'm like, what are you doing?
Would you be okay? Like I'd be
No, you're not. And like, and not only that, but you have to do it. So
right.
like, your baby, and it's like too many changes at once,
Yeah,
work
one change at a
incrementally. If you're using the snoo and you want to get out of the snoo, do one nap a day in the crib. Just one. If your baby is sleeping through the night, and then I work on sleeping through the night first and then attempting self-soothing, which I can talk about a little bit. I think it's easier because the baby is not going to learn. If the baby feels like you feel and you're tired, they're not going to learn how to put themselves to sleep. It's much easier once they're sleeping all night to teach them how to self-soothe. And really all you do with self-soothing is allow them the opportunity to put themselves to sleep when they're not overly tired. And it really is quite simple. But in that, like, you would want to just work slowly to transition that. You work at one nap a day self-soothing. You don't do all of them, or else you can really disrupt your nighttime sleep with all the changes. Because, I always work in the morning. Solids I introduce in the morning. Any transitional changes, we're doing it in the morning, because then you have the rest of the day to keep your routine, which I can talk about, to make sure the baby's not getting overly tired, to make sure that they're not getting too much daytime sleep, to make sure that they're eating enough milk, because solids actually can disrupt nighttime sleep, which, I have this wonderful sweet potato example on my online program that's like, just measures the calories in a half of a sweet potato versus a bottle. And it's astounding. Like, everyone's like, we got to get to solids, but it actually can cause baby to eat less milk, which can disrupt their nighttime sleep in the first year. There's a reason we feed them breast milk and formula, because they can't hold enough in their stomach solid wise to remain satiated and full and meet their caloric needs. It's just impossible. That's why we are giving them milk. So everything you do, just do, work slowly at transition, one thing at a time, like Nikki said.
Nina, do you have any questions?
I have so many
She's like
questions.
8 million.
Well, one thing that you were talking about before, and somebody had asked us about like this, getting the 30-minute feed, especially early on. So I guess my question would be, if they're not, let's say you're breastfeeding and they're not feeding for 30 minutes and you offer, like, they just shot like 15 minutes
Right.
is done. Do you then offer feed again earlier, or do you just continue with your routine and then the next time you try again to get the 30 minutes? Like, how do you work toward, like, because that's the work that you're doing.
Yeah, no, of course. Baby will probably dictate that for you, because if they aren't eating for 30 minutes and they are hungry, they will probably not sleep as long. So it will kind of be dictated for you. And this is why we pay attention to like a routine, because if you feed your baby for 15 minutes and then they go to sleep and they wake up, sleep for an hour and a half, they're probably hungry again, because you're paying attention to the clock, to the rules that like I've created with a method where you can in every moment manage your baby's day. If you feed your baby for 15 minutes and they go to sleep and wake up 30 minutes later, they're probably not hungry. because even 15 minutes is a decent amount of food. So then you would kind of say, you know what, I'm going to actually try to get you back to sleep, to see if maybe it's a burp or maybe you had to express gas. Like once you hone in on this, you're going to learn your baby so that you're going to know what to do. You're going to be able to say, okay, you weren't fully fed. So if you have any doubt, like say Nina, you're feeding and she feeds or he feeds, I don't know if you're having, I forgot what you're having. You don't know.
A boy.
A boy, that's right.
Yeah.
So if he feeds for 15 minutes and then sleeps for 30 and you have any concern that he's hungry again, you always feed him. Like that we never compromise their needs based on like, I want to force a schedule or a routine. If you ever have a doubt, you're not going to screw it up. You're going to feed your baby, but you'll see as you go. Like, and then what I do with my program is I'll help parents, like, we're going to write this down, because one thing that I don't remember like what day of the week it is, like sometimes, and I could sleep all night. You're going to write this down so that you know what to, like, looking for patterns and looking for things that you can see of, like, there is, like, you know, babies should be able to go every 2 hours when they're even a newborn without eating, you know, and so we're going to try to help hold them to that and help them to facilitate that. So, and it's a kind of a roundabout answer, but as you're working towards it, you know, you might feed them a little bit sooner if
Right.
the feed was not as full. But then what you want to do is make decisions to start a new cycle of optimal wake time, which I briefly talked about, but we pay attention to how long babies should stay awake in there at every age, because there are wake time windows. We pay attention to that so we're not missing it, because if we miss their wake window, they become overly tired. So you would want to start a new cycle. Like in your case, if you fed and then baby slept and you decided to feed again, you would just want to start a new cycle of eat, play, sleep, to kind of just continue through your day. And that's all in the first 4.5 weeks for anyone who's expecting. You're not paying attention to the clock as it relates to like this time. We're really not even doing that ever, to be honest, until they're older. We're working through a routine, which is like, we have about like, okay, I want you to start their day between 6 to 7:30 in the morning, right? So that's a loose rule, around 4.5 weeks. Before that, you're going to start their day. You're going to let them lead you. You're going to feed fully, or try to, and work on that. You're going to have your wake time. Feed time is included in wake time. So if a newborn's wake time is probably 40 minutes, 30 of that's going to be eating. So then it's like they're going right back to sleep. And they'll probably sleep anyways. And then you let them sleep for a nap that you can limit if you choose to do that in the beginning, to limit the daytime sleep. And then you just work through that all day. And then you'll start to see it, get into a pattern as you keep notes and track all this stuff. You'll see it. And I can help you, you know, I help parents all the time. If you have questions, just DM me on my Instagram, but I can help you either that or my online program to kind of hone in on this. And as they get older, you will see, you know, a routine start to take shape. But even then, I mean, Nikki could probably attest, like every day is different. Yeah. So the books that tell you to do like 7-10, 1-4-7, it's bullshit. I'm sorry. It is. And it eventually, you have to, like, one of my method concepts is like flexibility, like flexible feed times will save your life. If your baby ate at
7.5 hour is like the same thing.
Yeah, like 100%.
1.5 hour, like if you like, he's on a 4-hour schedule. My son's 7 months, 7, 11, 3, 7. But if he's hungry at 10:30, I'm feeding him at 10:30. And if he like,
exactly.
Just, you kind of have to they're humans. Like, we're not hungry at like the same time every day.
No, and we don't eat at the same time. It's people really want, and I get it, because when you have like motherhood, it's like unpredictability, right? So like you get thrown into this, like you are not in, and we talked about it with Nina, like briefly at the beginning. Labor and delivery just prepare you for that, because you're like, I have no idea how this is happening, when this is happening, what it's going to look like. I was scheduled for a C-section with my twins and I delivered them vaginally. That's how it went. Like I was able to, and it's like, you have no control though. It's like God or whoever you believe in or higher power. And from that, it's like that throws you into motherhood, which is like, it is like, you have to be flexible. Maybe you have to go somewhere. Maybe you need to go and like get out of your house, and you're going to have to feed early or wake from a nap. One thing I do want to talk about, Wake time for me, I don't ever extend it. Like I keep that the same, meaning like if you have to go somewhere, I'd rather you have a short nap than a longer wake time, because a longer wake time is going to cause your baby to become overly tired. And it might not always disrupt sleep immediately, like if you have established sleep. But if you consistently have your baby becoming overly tired, you will see it cumulatively start to build, where it will get it can disrupt your nighttime sleep. So every day we're just managing keeping baby from becoming overly tired, keeping them from sleeping too much during the day, so that based on how much they can sleep at their age in 24 hours, so that 12 hours of sleep is possible at night. These are the things. Someone did ask about 12 hours of day and night, which
Yeah,
is very
there's a few
important.
questions. Yeah,
Yes.
the 12 hours, if baby's day is 12 hours and night is 12 hours and they wake up early 5:30, but their last nap is 5, do you still put them down early or wait until their wake window is over to put them down?
So you're saying if it's 12, okay, so if they wake up early for the day. So when we have an early started day, there's a couple ways you can manage it. It depends on how long their wake window is, because oftentimes when they're very young, I would just tell you to give them an extra nap, like an extra ultra short cat nap, like 15 minutes, literally. It just takes the edge off. The reason we do ultra short is so that we don't cause too much daytime sleep for the day. So we don't go over what they need. We always have to limit daytime sleep. So some babies can do a little bit extra. Like some babies, if they wake at 5:30 in the morning, that's an hour and a half extra that they should have been sleeping at night. Some babies can do that, sleep in the day, and then sleep 12 hours the next night. Some babies can't. Some babies need an extra cycle. So in order to prevent them from sleeping too much during the day, you would have to do a whole extra cycle of wake time, because you can do this little short cat nap that's not going to like give them too much daytime sleep. So you could do an earlier. I don't do
on their age, right? Like it
Yes.
depends how old they are.
Yeah, because if their optimal wake time is 2 hours, it's going to be difficult to get. You can always do a little bit less wake time, but it's going to be difficult to get them an extra nap. This is what I do literally all day long with parents, though, is help them to kind of, and eventually I'm going to create an app that does this for people, which is like to create, like help you figure out your day based on when baby wakes and on their age and all that stuff, like how to plan it, because that's the hard part, is the planning. You always are kind of wanting to think ahead of like, how am I getting?
You feel like you've accomplished something and then it changes. That's like,
oh yeah, because they wake early. You're like, well, yesterday you took an hour and a half nap at that time. Why today are you waking? And now I tried to I didn't utilize my time good yesterday, but I'm gonna today. Now you sleep for 30 minutes, and it does constantly change. So, you never want to extend wake time unless it's like slight, meaning like if it's 10 minutes, fine, do that. If baby has an early start of day and crappy naps all day, you're going to want to use an extra nap, because otherwise the wake window is going to become too long in that last period. And I will tell you, in all of my, consulting privately in my online program, keeping baby awake too long in the last wake window between the end of their last nap and bedtime, based on their age, that is one of the biggest sleep disruptors. If they stay awake too long, you're going to see false starts at bedtime, night wakings, waking early in the morning. It literally can or a baby who's literally like clawing your face and does not want to go to sleep. And then that last wake window is always like the culprit.
The hardest too. There's a bunch of questions. I know we're not going to get to hit all of them, but let's try for a few. 6-week-old has acid reflux and colic, but sleeps 9 to 3, fights daytime sleep, and will really only sleep in the carrier. We try play sleep, but not daytime routine has been established. Any suggestions?
At 6 weeks old, the wake window very well could still be 50 minutes. So you might be just waiting a hair too long. And all my kids had reflux. My kids were heavily medicated. They took Colicom. They vomited everything they ate for a year. I have PTSD from the vomit hitting my wood floors for a year. I was like, God's not going to give me twins with reflux. And he did.
Wow.
And I'm still here, and they slept. So the point is, it might be in addition to with colic or reflux or anything, if it's getting in the way of your baby eating or sleeping normally, you got to call your doctor, because it should never, ever be something that people are just like, well, this is how it is. And it's like, no, your baby should be able to eat and sleep within reason, without pain. That's a basic right. And if your baby is in pain and it's preventing them from sleeping, you need to stay on top of your doctor and get second opinions. That's like the number one thing. And a good tidbit is take a video. If your baby is doing something, because a lot of times we get dismissed as like, you're just a first time parent, you're just a mom, you're just being overly like dramatic. And you're like, no, my baby's literally like clawing my face and will not sleep. And I have to hold the baby upright. And it's like, oh, well, why didn't you tell me? And it's like, I've been trying to tell you for, so take a video if there's something going on. For the 6-week-old, my guess would be the wake time needs to be just lessened. So try a little bit sooner. Feed fully, cap the feed. I know that's hard with reflux babies because they don't want to eat as much, but cap the feed at 30 minutes so you're not extending past that, because then they're getting overly tired, then they're fighting sleep, and then when they're overly tired, they don't eat well the next feed. So then you're just exacerbating your own problem. Cap the feed at 30 minutes and always give yourself more time. Like there's no, like if you are figuring this out, it's practice. Practice putting your baby to sleep. Give yourself more time ahead of the nap so you're not rushed and panicked. You can always extend like a diaper change, if you're like, oh shoot, I started a little too early and baby's wanting to go down. Give yourself more time to get the 6-week-old to sleep by 50 minutes and see if that helps. And then from there, once you catch and use the carrier, I know that's hard because you don't want to use the carrier. Use that to get the baby into the age appropriate routine so that they catch up a little bit, and then start to work on getting them down in the crib, because that could just be overly tired that they're not wanting to, and reflux. But again, default back to what I said, the reflux should not get in the way of your baby being able to sleep normally. So there probably is a combination of things going on there.
Optimal wake time does include the feeding. So just call that out.
Yes, it does.
It does. Do you like pacifiers for bedtime?
Yes. I love pacifiers for sleep. I don't like them. If you have to use a pacifier during non-sleep times, we're missing something. They're hungry or they're tired. So you should not be.
Once he fell asleep, I
just take it out.
Take it out.
Yep.
Like it'll drop out itself, but then they now he likes to play with it when he's like going to bed, but it's like he doesn't need it. It's like fun if it's there, but it's and then that helps with self-soothing.
Yeah, I think that's great. Taking it out of their mouth. And my doula used to have me like rock my daughter to sleep, and like she would be like, rock, 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 and then like kind of like dance it like out of their mouth so that they're learning to like, I'm a huge fan of helping them to sleep. Help your baby to sleep. Like the drowsy but awake is, I think, a crock in the beginning because it compromises their ability to fall asleep by their wake time, and use the pacifier, help them to sleep. And then like Nikki said, I like to remove it from their mouth and the crib so that if they wake, they're not like seeing it, like next to them when they're like aware, but they can't get it, because that sometimes can disrupt them. Mm-hmm. That will help you. But everything is like, police yourself, right? Like I say this to parents all the time. If you're using it as a crutch for, I need 5 minutes to shower and baby's fussy and they're going to start to get used to that pacifier and then need it during the day. So try to police yourself with what, of course, if you need that, take it for one day, but then the next day you got to try to not use it for that. Yeah.
Don't do it like 2 days in a row. I always said that, like, don't make it a routine.
If because it becomes a thing. It's like police yourself. And like I have to promote safe crib sleep. All my kids slept in the crib at night. But like, if I was having a day, one of my twins was a 45-minute napper. With twins, you're dealing with 2 different babies with 2 different wake times and 2 different preferences. My one son, Teddy, was like a 45-minute napper. And I'd be like, this kid, I don't have it in me today, dude. So I'd put him in the swing, and he'd either be in his room with the monitor on him in the swing, safely sleeping. And I would check on him because I couldn't deal. I think the nap and the routine is more important than how we get it. Obviously, I want your babies to be in their cribs sleeping. I want you to just put them in there and walk out and be like, have a great nap, which will happen. But when you need a break, take a break for yourself and just police yourself. Make sure you're not doing it all the time, because yes, if you put your baby in a swing for every single nap, they will get used to it and they won't want to go in their crib. But if you need it to take a shower or go to the bathroom, please, by all means, put your baby in whatever you need to put them in safely.
Nina, anything else you have? There's a few more here, but any other questions?
Like 8 million questions.
Yeah. again, I think Anne's program is super affordable. She does like one-on-one emailing as an option. So like it helps so much. Like I'm telling you, and I think there'll be like a little bit of a
Yeah, I'll do a discount code. I think I did like 20% off the
Yeah, there'll be
annuals
like
last time.
there'll be like a discount code for
But you
like
don't really need it. Like I made it. Like sometimes I'm like, I made this like way too like like it works, but I don't want you for more than 3 months. I just
Right,
want you to
exactly.
do it for 3 months and learn how to do this and then enjoy the rest of your life. Because
like Anne likes the email when you have to cancel because
So
she
I love it.
That's a good question, actually, maybe for other pregnant people.
Yeah.
How long does it take to like learn the method? So Anne, if someone
I
was
would
like
give it-
expecting, like when, you know what I mean?
The videos are short. Like I made them super short
Yeah.
because I wanted them to be like sleep deprivation friendly. So like I usually say a month before, but like you could do like the reason I say a month is because like you said, Nina, your doctor's like be ready to go because you
Right.
might be dilated a little bit. I usually say a month because things can happen and come up. So I think a month before, but like you could do it 2 weeks before and still learn the method. And then it's there like I create it. Like people all the time are like, I don't get it. There's not new information. I'm like, well, I'm providing like literally like a priceless amount of information for like the minimum is $29.97 is what I've like people get on me sometimes. And I'm like, I don't think I can make it any more affordable. And the
Yeah.
reason I do a monthly is because like you do need to commit to this work. Like I remember when my daughter was born, I remember saying to my ex-husband, like, please just give me 10 weeks to just do exactly what I'm saying. And if it does not work, I promise you I'll do anything that you want. And it does. And so, but you have to commit to the work. And I promise you in the beginning, or even if your baby's a little bit older, if you give yourself, let's say, I want it to happen overnight for you. So let's say you have an older baby. Sometimes it does happen very quickly for like 3-month-olds, 4-month-olds. But it also can take time. We have to be patient with this. It's not going to like
and then you
always
forget
just
about it. Like then I'm like,
yeah.
you forget about it. Like I wanted him to sleep through the night at like 6 weeks, but he also was born at 6 pounds. And the doctor's like, until he's at least 10 pounds, he's not sleeping through the night. Like that's just
Because they
not-
can't hold enough. It's just like their
can't hold it.
stomach.
They're literally not big enough to do it. So like
Right.
that's
So give
also-
patience. Yeah.
you have to be-
100%.
And then once you're at 7, you're like, oh, I forget about those.
Oh yeah, because you're like
Right,
it's
the
like a
next
thing of the
thing.
past.
Yeah.
But when you're in it, it's the work is like it's a long, it's hard. It's like yeah, so but I made the program. There's tons of resources that also like the program works if you never communicated with me once. The program, it's all there. I actually just made my other ingredient section, which has like 50 videos and like 30 PDFs to just support like reflux and self-soothing and naps and all these different things.
And
That's
all like
how
optimal wake,
searchable.
like I see a
Yeah.
lot of optimal wake time questions for different ages. It's all
Yeah.
on here. Like how much daytime sleep is recommended for a 5-month-old? It's probably like 4 hours. Right?
It's look at Nikki go. She's like 4. Actually, by 6 months old, they only need 3.5 hours of daytime
3.5
sleep. So between 5 to 6 months, they actually drop from 4.5 to 3.5.
Which is like, it's upsetting.
Which is horrible. My kids are about to drop their last nap, and I'm like,
you're like the whole day.
they're also going to school. I'm like, how am I entertaining twin 3-year-olds for like an entire day?
Yeah.
School.
And then appropriate wake time for an 8-week-old. I don't have that answer, but I'm not off the top.
8 weeks old, it's on the cusp, so it would be going to like 70 minutes. It's probably around there. Here's one thing I do want to say. When they're younger, like when they're born, even the NICU put my sons on a 3-hour schedule. Okay. So they were eating and then they would sleep for like 2.5 hours. And so they came home and I was like paranoid. I was like, oh my God, they're not going to do this. Because they were having like one less feed and all this stuff. But what I want to say is sometimes when they're little and babies and newborns, they can do 90 minutes wake time, 90 minutes sleeping. They do that well. When that stops working, sometimes you actually have to lessen the wake time because it's the 4th trimester. They're like still feeling like they're in utero and they're all cozy and comfy. And they're doing basically whatever you want. They'll sleep anywhere. It's why it's the best time to work on sleep as well, because they'll do anything that you want them to do. But just be mindful that there is a period, I don't know if you remember, Nikki, where they like wake up kind of, and you're like, oh, in the beginning, you're like, this baby like literally is not doing anything. And then all of a sudden they wake up and you're like, I want you to go back to sleep.
Yeah.
Just remember that in the beginning, it can be like, oh, they can sleep longer and everyone's like, oh, these 2-hour naps. And it's like, it's actually not realistic. 2-hour naps are very hard because like we were just talking about, by 6 months old, they only need 3.5 hours of daytime sleep, but they still need 3 naps so that they're not staying awake too long. Some babies can do less,
Yeah.
but I find
Ryder
it,
goes to bed earlier, so we just do 2
yeah,
naps, but he
and
just
then he
like,
goes to
he's
bed.
like a 6:15 in bed, which is kind of nice.
Yeah, my
I'm
son's still
into
going to
it.
bed. I'm holding on to 6:30 bedtime like it's
Yeah.
nobody's business.
It also depends, like I know Anne mentioned 7 to 7, like you can also do your 12-hour, what works for you. If your
Yes,
partner or
8
you
to
works
8.
until 8 o'clock at night and wants to see the baby, you can do 9 to 9. Like I have a friend who's
Yeah.
pregnant due in August, and I'm like, you guys are night owls. Like, don't do 7 to 7. You will not
No.
be
I
happy
will
person.
say though that it's sometimes easier to establish the sleep using like baby's natural rhythms and then shifting the day. So I often get
Interesting.
parents that are trying to do an 8 to 8 or a 9 to 9, but baby's waking at 6. And I'm like, let's just use 6 and get you sleeping through the night. And then we'll shift it like we do with
Shift
time
it
change,
after.
or like
Interesting.
it's very easy that way to do, because sometimes you get stuck and it's like their natural rhythms, they do kind of fall into like the circadian rhythm, like it's more of like a 7 to 7, but there are tons of babies. I have parents that do a longer daytime because they want more time with their baby. You just have to play around with what works. I think the important thing is that you establish the sleep first, and then you kind of play based on what's age appropriate for baby, and then you can play around with like getting the daytime that you want, or or whatever.
Yeah.
Or whatever you want to sleep.
I don't know if you
Nina,
want
do you have
to.
more?
Yeah, Nina, do you have a final question?
Keep them coming. Nina's gonna
Okay.
have like, you're gonna email with me, but ask away.
I so many questions. Okay, what about, so I know Nikki, you mentioned this earlier when you had your little one, like obviously well, not obviously, but I'm planning to go back to work. So
Yeah.
how do you keep the like routine or whatever it is when you have somebody else that's now like responsible for keeping that routine, especially if they like don't follow your program yet? Like if we're like, okay, this is the program that we're doing for our family, but now it's up to somebody else.
Meaning like if you hire a nanny or someone else that's
Yeah.
going to take over the baby.
I have grandparents on email chains. I have
Yeah.
nannies on email chains. You can give them access. I'm so passionate about this. I have babies that go to daycare that do a different routine at daycare than they do at home. And then we just work on non-daycare days to make sure we're like on age appropriate routine. They really get used to anything you do. I'm a very firm believer in my method for like establishing the sleep. And then you can so you're going to hopefully do that before you'd be going back to work, right? You're going to get the sleep. Yeah. I want the sleep before the teething, before any regressions, which I don't really
like he slept
necessarily
through the
believe
night
in.
the day before I went back to work.
Right.
Like,
And then you're there,
okay.
and then it's easier to maintain. I created monthly guides. You can literally print them out, but like it's all about communication. I like pen and paper. Like,
yeah,
if you have multiple caregivers,
and
write it down.
It takes a minute. And like, I've been lucky because I didn't have to go to an office, right? So I'm like in my bedroom, clearly, and my nanny's here. So for the first week or two, I was able to kind of like work with her to kind of understand. I learned, and this is just me, she also is going to get to know Ryder in a different way at a different age than I do. And I kind of like, my thing was like, as long as he's sleeping through the night, what she does during the day, do what you want. So I like had to let go of like being like, wait, he's not napping right now. Like, I know he's not home, but then he'd be sleeping during the night. So I'm like, okay, what she's
okay.
doing.
Yeah. And I agree with that. I think
why micromanage if it's working?
Yeah.
Yes. And then it's like, if there's an issue, you can address it. Like you could have a nanny shadow you. Like you could have, if it's your mom, it's going to be a little bit more difficult because they don't like to listen. They think that they raised you. They're like, well, I raised you.
I knew.
And my mom, but my mom is no longer with us, but she used to be like, I raised you kids and I did just fine. And she was like trying to put a fleece blanket over my daughter's crib. And I'm like, we're going to just stop that right there. right there. But you can have them, and it's like one thing of like, say what you mean, but don't say it mean. So you can ask. I do feel like there is, and especially with women, there is a bit of a power struggle between women. If you're hiring a woman to watch your child, whether that's a night nurse or your mom is watching, or like a nanny, there is, and you have to be assertive with what you want because you are employing this person if that's what you want. If like Nikki said, if the daytime, like, I don't really care what you do as long as my child is sleeping all night. I leave instructions for my nannies.
Sure.
Hey, you have to wake up at, baby needs to be up at this time. My sons can't sleep more than an hour and 15 minutes or someone's up at night, and that affects my ability to work. So
Right.
I'm like,
Right.
I need you to cap their nap. Well, I'm not sitting there with a monitor. I don't watch it. I trust them that they're going to wake
Right.
them. And sometimes they do. And sometimes,
The
it's
trust is important. The trust is important because like
communication and clear communication.
clear communication. Yeah. Is my,
That's life though.
totally.
Yeah.
And it's hard. It's not easy. Like at the beginning,
No.
I was like, holy crap, I am here and I want to do that. And I'm here doing work, and it's a balance, and it's definitely not easy, but it's,
And the
again,
pandemic's been hard too, because we've
Correct.
all been like, I'm like in my
top of
living
it.
room right now. I'm
on
like,
top of each
okay.
other. Like, my husband's
Yeah.
out in the living room where the baby is, and I'm in the bedroom, and like,
Yeah.
it's a lot. But as long as you can trust and also be kind to yourself, what you need, do what you need, also prioritize yourself too, with the baby being healthy and safe and all the things.
Right.
It'll make for better. I always say I was a little savage when it came to like sleep, just because like I stopped breastfeeding early because I wanted to know how much he was eating in order to get him to sleep through the night. That was a choice I made. Some days I'm like, oh, I really love breastfeeding. I got a lot of milk. I was very lucky. And I still made that choice because I thought he was going to be a happier baby to get that sleep, and I was going to be happier sleeping.
Which is true. I mean, I think that goes back to normalizing it as something that like we all need, and that it's taking the shame out of it. Like, people are like trolls on Instagram,
God.
which like trolls. I'm like, please stop, because like I could easily say the same thing about what you're promoting, and I'm not going to, because it's what you believe in. But like, you're not going to ever tell me that you're going to tell a mom that she shouldn't want her child to sleep. It's not a bad thing, and it's very easily done. Using a variety of different techniques. This isn't one size fits all. So like, part of what I do with my email support is really tailor it for families, because everyone is different. I've tried to make a program that works for the greatest number of people. And then from there, I always make like tweaks, to what works for families.
Yes. I think we're at time, but I cannot recommend Anne enough. I thank you for creating it.
Well, thank you. I will send you a link for, I think the code probably still works, but I'll make sure and send it to you. So you can send it to
follow up with a link to this as well for anybody that had to hop out early to finish.
And if I didn't answer your question, DM me on Instagram and just tell me you were here, and I'd be happy to answer your question.
I'm so human about it. And, I think it goes back to what we're doing.
Nina, I'll email you, because I'm going to gift you. Thank you for doing this. I'm going to gift you access to the program for a year. So
thank you so much.
And
I've literally been waiting to do this program like for years. Like, I'm like waiting.
I'll send it later.
Thank you.
Thank
This
you,
was so
guys.
helpful.
So helpful.
All right, guys. Thank you so much. I'll see y'all soon.
Thank you.
Bye.